Hey everyone, want to talk to you today a little bit about time signatures, about time tempos, and how we view time in music. Again, you're going to need a metronome of some sort, whether you have a physical one, whether you have one that goes back and forth, whether you have a digital one. That's all great. I have a really nice big one I like to use, but the one I like to carry with me all the time is another free app. It's called Pro Metronome. And if you see it here, this is what it looks like on the inside. I can change these dials to make the numbers here go higher or lower. And the higher the number is, the faster the ticks when I press the play. You can hear the ticks that happen. And that would be like 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can make it go fast. I can make it go really fast. Should be looking at it while I'm doing it. I can make it go pretty fast. I can make it go pretty slowly. Whatever I need for the song that I'm practicing, whatever you need for the song that you're practicing. So typically, what we're taught when we're first starting out is that a quarter note gets one beat. So if a quarter note gets one beat, then when you're listening to this tick, that's your quarter note. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if you want to get something in 3 instead of 4, you just need to tap the time signature button. I'll actually look at it this time. And then just make the beats go down to 3, 4. And then when you play that, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So metronomes can do, they really pretty much can do anything you need them to do. I'm going to set it back at 4 for the sake of argument right now. So when we're doing this, saying that a quarter note gets a beat is the beat is only true for so long until you start learning other time signatures. And that's actually a conversation we're not going to do right now, talking about what 6/8 means. Really briefly, so 4/4, if you have a 4/4 time signature, that means you have 4 beats in every measure. And the top 4 means that you have 4, and the bottom 4 means that it's quarter, 4 for quarter. Like 4 quarters in a dollar. Quarter comes from the word quattro, comes from 4. It goes actually back to the old Latin word for 4, which is quattro. So you have 4 quarter notes in a measure. That's when you have 3/4, you have 3 quarter notes in a measure. Then we have other time signatures such as 6/8. That means we have 6 eighth notes in a measure. Then our metronome is not counting, it's probably not counting quarter notes, it's counting eighth notes because that bottom one is an 8. 6 eighth notes in a measure. So in that case, when we hear these clicks, that would be our eighth note that we're counting. You can have all sorts of time signatures. You can have 6/8, you can have 3/8, you can have 9/8, you can have 12/8, you can have 16/8 or 15/8. And the thing with all of those is just try to read it out. Well, I've been playing pieces before and I see time signatures. I have no idea what they mean. I once saw 3/1. That was probably the weirdest one I've seen. 3/1 means that you have 3, and 1 would be a whole note. You have 3 whole notes in every measure. And I mean, it's not that weird, but it was really weird not knowing what it was. But you just have to sound it out. What's how many of what kind of note? Top one is how many. The bottom is what kind of note. So you can have anything. You can have 7/8. That's a tough one. You can have, going back to the 4s, you can actually have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, 7/4 even actually. I've never seen an 8/4 before. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But you can have 4s. You can have 2s being on the bottom for half notes, right? If you have 1/2, that's 1 half note per measure. If you have 2/2, which is much more common, 2/2 looks just like 4/4 because it's 2 half notes in each measure. So 2 half notes is 4 quarter notes. So it looks the same as 4/4. It doesn't mean the same thing because it means a lot faster. And now your metronome is counting out half notes, so you have to play twice as fast. But that's just kind of a fun fact. You can have 4/2. I mean, you really can have very many combinations, whatever kind of note that you have. If you have a 16th note, if you're following, you're counting 16th notes, you can have, I recently played a piece with 16/16. You had 16 16th notes in every measure. That was really weird because you'd think that would be 4/4. but it wasn't. You can have 12/16, you can have 15/16, you can have these really weird combinations of notes. So yeah, that's how you'd read notes when you're. That's just kind of an overview. I don't expect you to know how to play in 5/4 next time we talk, but that's how you get it. And when you see something like that, don't panic. Just how many of what, and try to do that conversion rate in your mind. What I do want to talk more about today, though, is talking about the actual tempos that you'll be playing in. Now, we've probably already talked about in music, we use Italian words for most of our stuff. And that's just historical, that's just traditional, the way that we've been doing things. So a lot of Italian words that you see, even just forte and piano, those are Italian words that we use. So what I'm going to talk about today here, the first word we're going to use is Allegro. Allegro is a tempo marking. So specifically, Allegro, if you see 120, it says in little words Allegro after that. So Allegro can go anywhere. The fastest Allegro can go is like, let me see, specifically, I think it's 112? No, it's 110. The range for Allegro is going to be 110 to 131. I always think 120, just think 120. When you hear Allegro, that is the Italian word. It means quickly or lively. So when you hear Allegro, you're going to think 120. Pull out your handy metronome, you type in 120, that's Allegro. Now, pieces will say how fast they want you to play at the top left-hand corner, so like right over the first treble clef, it's going to say how fast it wants you to play. So that's the first one we're doing. Okay, the next one is Andante. Now, Andante, regardless of what it literally means, it means a walking tempo. So Andante is whatever speed you would walk at, or an average person would walk at. So let's see. Andante, I usually think 76. There's a little bit of range in there, but 76 is what's in my mind as Andante when I see Andante. Keep going as we keep going slower from there, we then have Adagio. Adagio is pretty slow. It's used in a lot of pieces, especially second movements. There are a lot of Adagio movements. Barber's Adagio for strings is one of the most beautiful pieces ever written. If you've never heard it, type it in. Barber's Adagio for strings is very sad, very beautiful. So Adagio, yes, that is nice and slow. Then we have Largo. Largo, you don't, I mean, I guess you do see it sometimes, but that's around 50. And then really slow, and I mean like 45, 40, which if you listen, that's very slow. That is Lento. Lento literally means slow. When you think Lento, it's supposed to be a very slow piece. Or maybe I told you to practice it Lento, then that's what that is. One I did forget about that you probably should know is Moderato. It's around 90. I like to think 90 has some moderate pace. And again, if you don't remember what these are, if you have a metronome app, you can just scroll and find out. But I'll write some of them down in the comment section for you so you can see exactly what I'm talking about with that. So there are a few others that are in betweens, but the next one we're going to talk about is Vivace. Vivace for me is like 140. So Allegro was 120. Now Vivace, again, there's a range, but think 140 for that. Vivace with life, right? That's going to be faster than Allegro, but not like crazy fast. It's still, pretty decent with that. The next one we're going to talk about is Presto. Presto is 170. That is very fast. That's very fast for most pieces. And when you see something written Presto, you know that they really want you to play it quickly. So, like many languages, Italian uses issimo or issima or to say most, kind of like we would say much more most. In that way, when we have the comparative and the superlative for them is issimo that they would put on the end of a word. So when you see a song that's allegrissimo, that's going to mean very allegro, very fast. So the fastest tempo that I've ever seen is prestissimo. So if you have presto and then issimo on top of that, prestissimo is very fast, probably almost meaning as fast as you can play it. You can have vivacissimo, you can have allegrissimo, yeah, you probably won't see many other ones that are that. But if you ever see that issimo, that means very that much, you know. So that's also something to base it off of. So those are some tempos that you can think about. This is going to be about terminology here. I want to teach you about some terminology. So I'm going to now teach you my favorite word of music, and that is penultimate. Penultimate, like the word ultimate that's inside of it, it's like penultimate, penultimate, means the second to last. So in my family, I am the penultimate child. I have a younger sibling. So I'm the second to last. I'm the penultimate. When you're reading music, it's very helpful. It's very easy to understand. If it's just second to last, do you mean the last line? Do you mean the last this? If I say I want you to play the penultimate measure, that means not the last measure of the piece, but the measure before that. If we talk about okay, we're going over the lessons, and we say, well, your most recent penultimate lesson would mean not the last one, but the one before that. So penultimate is a really awesome word. Try to use it this week. If you haven't already, I know I've challenged some of you to use it in your daily life, and some of you have done a really great job with that. Try to use the word penultimate. And if you don't remember it, write it down. Stick it on a stick-it note, stick it on your mirror or on your closet door, something like that, and check out the word penultimate. It's a pretty awesome word, and it's very smart sounding, but also very direct in what you're trying to accomplish when you use the word penultimate. Okay, so let's see. We're going to talk about a few other things in here, few other terminology that we wanted to learn. And most of you know your dynamics, but I'm going to talk about a few dynamics here. Or kind of forte means loud. It is usually represented by an F, and it means loud. Forte is the Italian word for like strong, loud. Piano means soft. It means like low is what piano really means, but it's usually designated with a P, a lowercase p, like the lowercase f, and it means soft. M is short for medium or moderate. In Italian, mezzo. So if you see an MP, that's mezzo piano, medium soft. If you see an MF, that's mezzo forte, medium loud. So now, if you see, so that's three dynamics we're probably going to cover. That's probably going to cover most of our range. If you see PP, that means pianissimo. And if you remember, the issimo means very piano, very soft. So if you see pianissimo, FF means fortissimo, very strong. That's the spectrum right there that you're going to have. Other things you're going to see FP, which means forte piano. You're going to start forte and immediately back down to piano. And they write it right next to each other, so you know just that first note, forte, and then immediately back down to piano for the next note. Another thing you're going to see is a Sforzando, which is kind of sudden forte that's kind of like an accent, but with less bang and more volume. So Sforzando is what you're going to see. Also, you're going to see the other thing we're going to talk about is crescendo and decrescendo or diminuendo. Actually don't mean the same thing, but we're going to talk about them as the same thing right now, diminuendo and decrescendo for now. So a crescendo is what you see when you see these lines, and I think this might be flipped for your mirror vision, but hopefully you'll see when you're playing, and you see like these two like brackets that get bigger and bigger as it goes. When it gets bigger and bigger, that means get louder. That is crescendo. So it's literally two lines that you'll see drawn in under your music or sometimes above your music that will say getting louder. That is crescendo. Getting louder. Then decrescendo is when you start with the loud bars and then it goes down. And that means decrescendo or diminuendo, getting softer. So if you might start a song piano, which will be a lowercase p, and then you'll see the crescendo, and you're going to get louder until an F. Maybe they write in the F, maybe they don't. They write in an F, so you know that you don't go from soft to loud. You have this gradual getting louder till you get to forte, and then you might have a decrescendo down to medium forte. MF, right? Mezzo, forte, medium, loud. So crescendos and decrescendos are really helpful in letting us know where the direction of sound is going, to know if you're getting louder or if you're getting softer. Lots of music is always either getting louder or getting softer, so knowing where you fit in there is really important. And knowing where you're supposed to be moving. You don't want to be building up a piece if you're coming to the end, right? And seeing that, okay, these are the last few notes. Some pieces want you to crescendo to the end so that the last note is the loudest note of the piece. Suzuki Two Grenadiers from Violin Book 2, that is one example where they want you to get louder and louder to the very end of the song. So that's more often than not we come down. But look for those crescendos and decrescendos, not just at the end of the piece, but all throughout the piece. Really important to see. So those are some Italian words that hopefully are Italian words and just some terminology that we're going to see in music. If you have questions either about these ones or ones that maybe you've seen, because there are a lot more. There are lots of words that you will see. Okay, one of them being rit or ritenuto or rallentando, which means slow down, gradually slowing down. And then a tempo, which is like a, and then a separate word, tempo, means getting back to normal tempo. Whatever that normal tempo was, if you're slowing down, now we're back a tempo, we're with normal tempo. So there are a slew of words to know. DCs, da capos, DS, all that kind of stuff that you're going to see. We can talk about more of those at another time or as they come up in your music. If you have any questions, again, feel free to text me, feel free to call me, or write it down, and we'll talk about it at your next lesson. Make sure to write it down so that you remember that was a problem, because there's nothing worse than being like, I had a question for you and I don't remember what it was. So definitely hope this helps, and I will talk to you soon.